All right, welcome to the conversation. I'm really privileged today to be joined by Mia Mason, who is running in the 1st District of Maryland for Congress as the Democratic candidate. And what's particularly exciting about this for me is that this is where I'm from, and it's an extraordinarily interesting district, and it's the kind of district that Democrats are going to have to figure out a way to win if they're ever going to be the kind of populist progressive party that they want to. It spans what's known as the Eastern Shore of Maryland. For people who don't know what that is, that's the eastern side of the Chesapeake Bay. There is oddly no Western Shore. People who live on the west side of the Chesapeake Bay don't consider themselves to live on the Western Shore. They consider themselves to live in Annapolis or Baltimore or Washington, D.C. And it's one of these places that has a very strong cultural identity, but they're only about 250, 300,000 people. So Democrats have kind of mashed a whole bunch of other Republicans, or what used to be Republicans, into that district so that they could redistrict the entire state and basically win 7 out of the 8 congressional seats and then just stuff all of the Republicans into this one. But because demographics and politics are changing so rapidly, everything is now up for grabs. The suburbs that they thought that they were writing off are now moving Democratic, and climate change and development are changing the nature of the Eastern Shore as well, making this a district that is certainly plausible for Democrats to run in. And Mia is taking a crack at Andy Harris, who is not one of these kind of centrist moderate Republicans. He's a far right kind of Tea Party Republican. Mia can explain more about who this guy is. But so, Mia, what has it been like talking to voters in this district? I assume a lot of them tell you, why are you even bothering? This is such a Republican place. Why bother going after Andy Harris? Or what are you hearing as you're talking to voters in Maryland's 1st District?
Well, as I'm talking with our voters in the district, they understand that this is about the policy. Regardless of what our gender is or our identity is, it's about taking care of them, voting for them, representing them, making sure that policies for our healthcare, our economy, and the COVID response are actually being taken care of, where he has failed us by voting no against our communities. So when we talk to our communities, this is what we're talking about. What is affecting them right now and what they've been going through for the last several months.
Right, and this is a kind of an oddball representative. I mean, if I remember correctly, didn't he first get famous when he was a state legislator? He tried to take money away from the University of Maryland because there was some kind of R-rated film that a student group showed at an event. He went to, as a state senator, tried to take money away from the University of Maryland as a result of it. What's his approach been to coronavirus? Has he been kind of lockstep with the Trump and anti-mask crowd?
I believe so. He is one of the top 5 loyalists to President Trump, and he has made it himself to also take the therapeutic drug that he is testing under, the Operation Warp Speed. So he is really taking his own life at risk to be able to help the president and those of the community by cutting the red tape and hurting our communities. And the other thing that he was famous for was in his first days of Congress was complaining about his healthcare not starting on time.
So one of the most outspoken environmentalists that have been a member of the Republican Party in the last 30 years actually represented the district that you're running in now, as you know for sure, Wayne Gilchrist. Despite being a Republican, he was a leading advocate of cleaning up the Chesapeake Bay, fighting against pollution, and broadly drawing the ire of a lot of industry forces. And so it always made me think that in that district there's an appetite for that type of politics. Have you found that to be the case, or has polarization gotten so intense since then? He was beaten by Andy Harris in 2008. Has polarization gotten so intense since then that even people who do care about the environment are still kind of just checking that R box?
Well, Representative Wayne Gilchrist is still taking care of the environment. He's still taking care of the communities, and he's even came and supported our campaign, which is showing a lot of support for Democrats to be able to remove this man who is simply putting a Band-Aid on everything by giving simple grants to help him when he should be fighting for our communities. So with Representative Wayne Gilchrist's help, he's been immensely helpful in helping our Republicans sway to us to help us get us elected for this November election.
And one of the big issues, and so anybody who lives in Washington or the Baltimore area knows that getting over to the Eastern Shore requires you to cross what's known as the Bay Bridge, which often has a lot of backup. On the eastern side, on the Eastern Shore, a lot of people over there are kind of hostile to the idea that you would kind of either expand that or build a new bridge somewhere else. It's this classic kind of development versus conservation versus economic activity argument. What are you hearing from people on either sides of the bay, and where do you come down on the idea of expanding the bridge?
Well, our folks in Kent County definitely do not want the Third Bay Bridge in their neighborhood from BWI to Queens Anne County.
That's where I'm from, Kent County, yes.
Yeah, it really affects our environment when you want to devastate the white marshlands and everything else that is part of an island or farming community, including the historical preservation that is needed to keep, the Eastern Shore so beautiful the way it is. So our obvious choice for the governor after this election is to basically say, put the bridge right where the other two are and make sure that it has public transit on it so that as folks down in Trapp County, Cambridge and Dorchester and Tabot County, they have like a 2100 development coming up. Well, those folks don't want to be stuck in Bay Bridge traffic. They need a new Bay Bridge right where it is right now.
Well, why is that so difficult? Like it just seems so obvious that you already have two giant bridges next to each other. It's the shortest gap across the Chesapeake Bay. Why is there this hunt for another spot that will have the environmental implications that are so obvious, and then the development that comes with that?
Well,
I don't even understand. Is it Baltimore interests that are pushing this, or what?
It's the maintenance and the cost of maintaining those bridges. They're both 30 to 40 years old now, so they're going to be needed for a lifetime replacement here in the next 20 to 40 years. So it's an economic development as well to make sure that we have something that lasts, that doesn't cost us so much in maintenance and increase our tolls. And then of course, when you're still looking at the traffic and congestion for every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it backs up all the way down to Easton and backs all the way up past Perot by Annapolis. So it's about easing that congestion as well, reducing the time that you're sitting in traffic, which also reduces our climate emissions.
Right. So you're now 18 days away from the election. The suburbs around Baltimore were very typically considered to be the strong Republican area that Democrats wanted to carve off and give to the Eastern Shore. Have the Baltimore suburbs kind of gone the way of suburbs nationally in that they're tilting more Democratic, or is there something unique about Baltimore and the Baltimore suburbs that is keeping them more strongly conservative?
I think that we are in the majority of the women who have sided with us, and that's what's going to lead us into the victory. Is the women are voting, they're conscious to make sure that they have affordable health care, make sure that they can get the education for the kids, and then of course make sure that they have a job for them and their husband.
What's been the posture of the state Democratic Party and the National Democratic Party to your race? Are you getting the kind of help you think you need?
No, we've basically been grassroots organization with our coalition, No Dem Left Behind. And of course, we've basically only had small dollar donations from those that we've been able to reach with the limited resources that we've had.
And so I know you got to run pretty soon, but tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what your pitch has been to voters.
Well, folks, I am a veteran, a friend, and an advocate, and part of the LGBT community. We're basically focused on your land, your legacy, and your vote. So we really appreciate that you get the opportunity to complete your early voting and also come out for election day to vote for our policies, regardless if it's a man or a woman coming to your Congress here in the future.
And last question: what is the early voting time period in Maryland?
In Maryland,
so that people know.
Sure. In Maryland, it's going to be October 26th to November 2nd from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then, of course, November 3rd, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Well, Mia Mason, good luck to you starting on October 26th and especially on November 3rd. Thanks so much for joining us here on The Conversation.
Thank you.
2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below. Then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.